Alright guys, this is a monumental fucking task here. I figure let me let that poll go on a little bit more because the Babadook is winning by a decent amount and kinda not happy with that. We'll talk about that movie when I get to it. But I was looking through some older stuff and saw an old video I did on Mulholland Drive, and it just made me want to watch a Lynch film, and it specifically made me want to watch Twin Peaks. Now, many of you, if not all of you, know that David Lynch will always be one of my favorite directors to ever grace this planet. I literally shed some tears when I heard of his passing earlier this year. Like, what a terrible way to start this year off, with David Lynch passing away. But I've been saying since I started the channel that I've wanted to cover Twin Peaks in some way. I've done a video on Eraserhead and Mulholland Drive. That's it so far for Lynch. There'll be more. But I've been wondering forever how to cover and tackle Twin Peaks. It's just, like I said, it's a monumental feat if you could do that and pull that off. So I was talking to people. Jamie, if you see this, we were supposed to do a watch along of this forever ago, but we'll do something Twin Peaks related. I've thought of covering the series episode by episode, but that would take a while and it would take away from, other movies and stuff. It's hard to do series for me. Then I thought of doing like a video on a season at a time. Season 1, season 2, maybe 2, split season 2 into halves, and then one on the return. So I still don't know how to fully tackle Twin Peaks. But I know how to talk Fire Walk with Me from 1992. So basically, I'm just going to assume that anyone watching this at least has a pretty good grasp on all the mythology and the lore, including the first 2 seasons, The Return, this movie, and even the missing pieces. Fire Walk with Me, the missing pieces, which I'm sure I'll do something on that eventually too, to round out this movie, because there are some cool scenes in there that expand on or hint at other things. But one thing with this movie, you can tell immediately from the opening credits with Angelo Badalamenti's score. It's gorgeous here, but then the TV gets smashed in, and then you see the body of Teresa Banks floating in the river. It's so much darker than anything before this movie came out. The show was a lot more lighthearted, and I contribute a lot of that to Mark Frost. But when you have just David Lynch doing Twin Peaks, look at The Return and how that is majorly dark compared to anything else that we've seen. So I feel like Frost kind of balanced Lynch a bit with the lightheartedness and the goofiness with the surreal and just insanity. Not to say that Lynch didn't have a big hand in the goofiness too, of course, but you can tell a difference from the first scene of this movie. Like, if you just saw the first 2 seasons of the show, and then you watch this is such a darker version of anything you see in the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks. So Gordon, and I just realized that this is the first time that I've seen David Lynch on screen as Gordon Coles as David passed away. Like, that sucks, man. But he ends up calling for Chester Desmond. That's a whole topic there that we got to dive into, is his character, what happens to him, and then the Tremonds and the Chalfonts, the 2 Chalfonts. Moira Kelly, who was one of the few people that they had to recast in this, and Laura Flynn Boyle, for some reason, didn't come back. I don't mind Moira Kelly in this. I think she does fine. Unbelievable cast in this film. So Chester Desmond and Kiefer Sutherland, that's another one, who plays Sam Stanley. He meets up with Gordon Cole, and he gets his surprise. Her name is Lil. She's my mother's sister's girl. And she has the blue rose on her and the red dress, and she's making all the signals and stuff and the faces. And I love how Agent Desmond breaks down to Sam, like, what all of that means.
I'll explain it to you. Remember, Lil's wearing a sour face. We're gonna have problems with the local authorities. I'm not gonna be receptive to the FBI. Both eyes blinking means trouble higher up. The eye is the local authority. You notice she had one hand in her pocket, which means they're hiding something. And the other hand made into a fist, which means they're gonna be belligerent. Lil was walking in place, which means there's gonna be a lot of legwork involved.
So they get to Deer Meadow, where Teresa Banks was killed. The sheriff department, they're treating Desmond and Stanley like absolute shit. They are not welcoming like the good old folk in Twin Peaks. But interesting, when they start doing the autopsy on Teresa Banks' body, right before they start that scene, we get a close-up shot of the clock with the time 4:30, which in the return, the giant ends up telling Cooper, remember 430, Richard and Linda. There's another 430 reference. In the return, it was, man, I should have done this until I brushed up and rewatched the return, but it was the distance they had to drive to enter that different dimension, or whatever it is. So they end up walking into the diner that Teresa Banks used to work at, and they're talking to the older woman who's smoking a cigarette, and Stanley gives her shit for it when she says she doesn't do drugs, because she says Teresa had a problem with cocaine. But when they first come in and they sit down, from the back of the place, you could see sparks of electricity, or like a light flickering, which we know is a very common theme throughout this entire property. When she says that a few days before she died, Teresa Banks, her arm went completely numb, what do you think that means? Because, I mean, Laura says in the lodge in the show that sometimes her arms bend back. So is it referring maybe to that? Or could it be like Mike, the arm, and like her arm went numb, just like he lost, cut his arm off and it became the arm. I don't know. Like with everything with Lynch, there's always a million interpretations. So let me know what you think about that. So Chet and Sam end up at the Lake Trout trailer park, which we see again years later in The Return. And we see Carl, played by the great late Harry Dean Stanton. They want to see Teresa Banks' trailer. Now, there's a weird scene here. I mean, every scene is fucking weird in this movie. But there's a very weird scene and random thing here. The three of them are in the trailer, and they're having the very strong coffee that they're all loving. That bum, like hunchback woman with the cane walks in, and they're looking at her, and then Chet ends up asking her, do you know Teresa Banks? And she just doesn't say anything. She's just like not chuckling to herself, but almost. And then she just walks away. Then it cuts to the telephone pole with the 6 on it, which we know is some port of entry or way that the lodge entities can travel, and like that's their stop. We see that in The Return a lot as well. So is that woman a lodge entity? Because Carl is visibly shaken. And he even says, I've been places. So he makes it sound pretty clear, and Chet knows what he's talking about. Like, you could see it on his face. That implies that, so many names. So that implies that Carl has traveled to like a different dimension, or to the lodge in some way, right? That's how I take that. But is that woman a lodge entity that just appeared and then, left? Because he's so visibly shaken. He could have easily said, no, that's Greta. She lives down the street. But he doesn't say any of that. So Chet ends up going back to the trailer park without Sam, which Sam knows and says, you're going back for the blue rose. Because earlier he says, you noticed the blue rose? He said yes, but he says, I can't tell you about that, which, I don't know, why would he even bring it up if you can't tell him about it? Did you just want to like shove it in his face a bit? Like, I got higher clearance and I know some shit you don't? Because there's no other reason for him to have brought it up at all. But Chet, and isn't the name Chester Desmond? I know I haven't seen the movie in forever, but I know Sunset Boulevard was David Lynch's favorite movie. Wasn't one of the characters Chester Desmond? And the other one is Norma Jennings, right? Aren't those two names from Sunset Boulevard? Let me know. I haven't seen that movie in, I don't know, 15 plus years maybe. But Chet ends up back at the trailer of Teresa and finds the Owl Cave Formica ring underneath the trailer. And he goes to pick it up, and we never see Chester Desmond again. So I always just assumed he got sucked into the Black Lodge, right? Especially that we're about to find out in a bit when Cooper goes there to follow up after Desmond disappears, that the Chalfonts, two of them, lived in that trailer park, and then the Tremonts, the old woman with the son who's played by David Lynch's son in the show, but not in the film here. But the ring is a whole topic in and of its own, because the way I always take it with the ring is if you're wearing it, the lodge entity or like Bob can't possess you, but he can just kill you. So Teresa was wearing the ring. They see it in a photo of her a little bit ago. So she was wearing the ring when Bob ended up killing her. We know Bob wants to possess Laura, and at the end of the movie, you know, Mike throws the ring to her, she slips it on, and he gets visibly pissed that he can't possess her, and he ends up killing her. And that's what kickstarts off the whole series. But I guess just touching it, or is it because Chester Desmond was in that exact location, like near where one of the portals are, if you will? Okay, so there is a fuck ton to unpack here. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. We're at the Philadelphia office, and Cooper goes up to Gordon.
Gordon, it's 10:10 a.m. on February 16th. I was worried about today because of the dream I told you about.
And then he goes outside, and this whole scene is just spectacular. The way it's filmed with the whole lodge meeting, we'll get there. But he goes outside in the hallway, and you see on the security monitor, he's looking at it. Then he comes back in, and he looks on the monitor, and there's nothing there in the hallway. Then he goes back, and does it again. And then the third time, his image sticks on the security footage when he comes back in. So he's staring at himself, and that's what allows Philip Jeffries, David Bowie, to come back in time, because he definitely was in a different time. And I don't think it was the past, it was the future, because he turns into a teacup in the return. And he's able to manipulate time and stuff. And I always forget whether it's the Missing Pieces that has the scene where they show you where he disappears to. And it's Buenos Aires, right? And like the person who works there, the towel guy, sees him just like appear, and the guy just freaks out. But that is the Missing Pieces. It's not in this one. But he comes in and he says,
"Who do you think this is there?"
Pointing at Cooper. So he has to be from the future, right? In the whole timeline, or the alternate timelines, like I said, this is impossible. But the return gives this scene a lot more context and makes it seem like he's pointing out that that's not the real Cooper, that that's evil Coop. That's his doppelganger. Am I right on that? Let me know if anyone has any other interpretations, because that's what I take from it. Then he says, I've been to one of their meetings, and we see the jumping man. And then we see Mrs. Tremont with her grandson, with the mask, and then it turns into a monkey face behind it. The whole scene is one of the most surreal, tripped out scenes that I've ever seen in a movie. And the man from another place and Bob, they're all sitting at the Formica table, and he says, with this ring I thee wed, with his reverse talk. So what does all of this mean? I have no idea. No, but we know that they thrive and feed off garmonbozia, which is the pain and suffering of others. And at the end of the movie, Bob gives the man from another place a shit ton of it from Leland. So I guess Jeffries was just able to come back and relay this information.
I'm not going to talk about Judy. In fact, we're not going to talk about Judy at all. We're going to keep her out of it.
Gordon?
And you know what? We're not going to talk about Judy because that is a whole nother topic. That's for another time in another video. Then we see Cooper get to the trailer park, and this is where we hear about the Chalfonts. I always confuse it then because they're called Tremont, the woman and her grandkid in the series in season 2. In this, Carl says to Cooper that their name is Chalfont and it's the grandmother and her grandson. And in fact, the people before them were Chalfonts, 2 Chalfonts. So we know that they're lodge entities. So who are the other Chalfonts and why are they called Tremont in the series? And it also links to the very end of this series, the last episode of The Return, when Cooper and Carrie Page get to Laura's house, and the woman there is Tremont, and she asks her husband off screen, the prior owners, and it's Chalfont. So somebody explained to me the whole significance of all of that and their interpretation of it, because yeah, of course they're lodge entities, but are they like what causes all these events? But I reserve that for Judy. Isn't Judy the one controlling shit? It takes a half hour into this movie for one, Agent Cooper to arrive and show his face, and 2, 34 minutes or so to hear the iconic theme to Twin Peaks and see Laura Palmer, which you can definitely see. I mean, we haven't even talked about that, how this movie was received. This was panned by almost everybody, just mostly negative reception, and it's because of how bleak it is and how dark it is. The whole movie at its core is this poor girl's struggle with incest before she's murdered by her father. Like, that's the takeaway. Like, you can have all the mystical stuff in there, but bare bones, that's exactly what happens in this movie. So this was very dark and a dark take on Laura Palmer that everybody else knew from the series. So it's no big surprise that this movie bombed and was not well received at all. And it went on to become, in my opinion, the most important, part of this whole franchise. If you don't watch this film, nothing else will make sense. Even if you watch the first 2 seasons and The Return without Fire Walk With Me, you're going to be missing so much stuff, it's not even funny. So 30 minutes in to see beautiful Laura Palmer, and we're only 30 minutes into this movie, guys, so be careful. Actually, a lot of the stuff, Laura and seeing Bobby and Mike and her talking with Donna, there's not a lot to dissect there, because all of this goes without saying. The score, the sound design, the directing, the camera work, the acting, everything is perfect in this movie. Where there's not something to dive into an interpretation on, I'll glide past it a bit, but all of that is great. And usually recasts do bother me because continuity I'm big on. But for some reason, I don't know, like I said, Moira Kelly does a good job here as Donna. And Cheryl Lee, she does not get enough credit as an actress. She is phenomenal in this movie. She's the standout in this film. She notices that in her diary, some of the pages were torn out, and she thinks it's Bob, which it is Bob, it's her father, it's Leland. But she goes to Harold Smith's house, the guy that we see in season 2, that Donna hangs out with and tries to get the diary from. And another amazing jump scare from Lynch, just like the one in Mulholland Drive with the bum behind Winkies, which I think is one of the best jump scares ever. This one's excellent too, when she's telling him that Bob is real and grabbing onto him, and then she says fire, walk with me, and then there's a close-up on her teeth, but it's not her grin. It scares her, and then she starts crying on his shoulder, and he's freaking the hell out, obviously. That's a great jump scare. But man, if you just take this movie on its own and separate from everything else in the series and just look at it in the context of this film, it is so effective at showing beauty and innocence being corrupted and destroyed from outside, from within, from other people to themselves. Like, this movie is one of the best at portraying themes like that. A whole nother topic of conversation is the lodge entities. Not all of them are evil. Not all of them are bad. Like Mrs. Chalfont / Tremont and her grandkid. They try helping Laura by saying that Bob is in the bedroom, implying that it's her father, and they give her the painting. So they try helping her. And there's a few other lodge entities. Mike saves Laura at the end of this. Mike helps Cooper throughout the return. So it seems like Bob is just a homicidal maniac of the lodge entities. The arm, I don't know, he's the controller? Like, I don't know how any of that works. The sound design is so goddamn good in this movie, just like every Lynch film or production from him. He's the only director that every time I watch a film by him or rewatch something, I'm always listening to it with headphones. Always. And that painting is of the staircase with the door that is supposed to lead to above the convenience store, right? That we see in the return. And then when Laura walks into her room and she sees Bob lurking in the corner, and she runs out of the house and she hides, and then she sees her father come out and she starts breaking down, going, no. I'm telling you, her performance is unreal in this. And oh, can you imagine what this poor fucking girl is feeling and going through? Lots more to unpack here with this scene. The whole dream sequence, but is it really a dream that Laura's having? Or is she being pulled through the painting or the portal by, I'm guessing maybe the Chalfonts, the old woman and the grandkid, are like the gatekeepers, like to the portals, like between dimensions and through time. That kind of makes sense. But we see like a POV going through the painting and creepily with Mrs. Chalfont like waving, and then the grandkid, and then we see Cooper come out and he sees the man from another place, and he says, do you know who I am? I am the arm, I sound like this, and just the little blah blah blah. And then we see Annie in bed next to Laura. This is from the future. So again, we have like time travel going on in alternate timelines. And she says that she's been with Dale and Laura in the lodge, and the good Cooper is in the Black Lodge, he can't get out. And then she wakes up and she thinks it's a dream. And also, Cooper is communicating with Laura during that scene, saying, don't take the ring. So again, with the ring, does it protect you from getting possessed by one of these lodge entities like Bob? Because that's what it seems like. But then why would he say don't take the ring? Like it's a bad thing. Wouldn't she want that to not get possessed? Unless that just means then you're going to die. Okay, I think I finally got everything about the ring wrapped up nicely in my head. So let's see.
This ring, I feel
That's what the man from another place, aka the Arm, says. And Chester Desmond disappears, assumably to the Black Lodge, when he touches the ring. Teresa Banks was wearing the ring, and she died. We don't see her in the lodge, but we can assume maybe she went there too, because we don't see Chester Desmond in the lodge either. And then Laura at the end, we know that Laura gets bound to the lodge. She's in the Black Lodge after she dies. So with this ring ID wed, I guess wearing the ring is a bad thing, because it ties you to the Black Lodge after you die, I guess. Does that make sense? Because that's like the most sense I can make out of it right now. And then we get a great performance from Julie Cruz, who her music just has added so much to this series. The whole scene when Donna's trying to prove herself to Laura that she could party too, and they're with the two guys, and then she gets drugged and Donna gets her shirt ripped off. Then their talk the next morning and how she doesn't want Donna to be like her, and all of that's great. Then the run-in with Mike when he like pulls the car over on Laura with her dad and starts shoving the ring in his face and starts screaming at him, and then he starts having flashbacks, Leland, about killing Teresa Banks and the time that he almost like was set up to have a threesome with his daughter and the other girl there, and he chickens out and he ends up leaving. And then we see the grandkid with the plaster mask jump around a bit and then just disappear. So I mean, again, I don't know what that represents. I mean, it's right after Leland, aka Bob, leaves. So again, like a portal, gatekeepers, like that's him doing his dance after Bob was able to go through. I don't know. And then this is when we see Bobby kill somebody when he goes with Laura into the woods to have a meet up to do a cocaine deal. But it's a setup. And then he ends up shooting the guy in self-defense and kills him. And I love how Laura starts laughing hysterically. Like she's just had it and she's just so beaten that she just loses it. She just starts cracking up hysterically. Oh man. And then the scene when Bob comes into Laura's room and starts raping her, and she starts saying like, who are you? Who are you? And then she sees her father's face, like, oh, and she screams. That's another thing with Cheryl Lee. Her screams are fantastic, man. They really pierce your ears. Interesting because before Leland goes to do that, he drugs Sarah's drink and makes her drink the whole thing. Then she sees the white horse, which is another whole thing. We see the white horse several times throughout the whole series. But I thought it was interesting when I immediately thought of episode 8 from The Return. This is the water, this is the well, drink full and descend. The horse is the white of the eyes and dark within, is that it? But drink full and descend is what she does. She drinks the drink and then she's sedated. She descends in consciousness, if you will. And then she sees the white horse. Again, the white horse, I don't fully know how I feel about that and what that is supposed to mean, but leave your theories down in the comments. Then there's the angel symbolism in this that we never really see again outside of this movie. Outside of the traditional interpretation of it is like seeing hope or a way out or someone looking over you. I don't know what it's really supposed to mean outside of that, because Laura sees the angel in her painting disappear. So that's like she has no guardian angel anymore, and it's going to lead to her dying. Renette Polanski, after they go, the two of them, the two girls, and Leo Johnson and Jacques Renault go to their little sex party where they start assaulting Laura. Then Leland shows up, aka Bob, and brings them to the abandoned train car. The last 15 minutes of this movie is some of the most chaotically shot, just insane shit that I've ever seen in a movie. Disturbing as can be. Everything, just seeing what happened to Laura and by her own father. Regardless of whether he's really, taken over and possessed by Bob, by some type of spirit, or if it's all just metaphor and he's just been fighting this inner demon. It's so disturbing. but it's so effective. It's directed so well. Mike shows up, throws the ring in after Renette sees her guardian angel, and then she lets Mike throw the ring in, so she gets to escape after she sees her angel. And then Laura ends up putting the ring on, and yeah, that stops Bob, whatever, from being able to possess her. So you hear Leland saying, like, don't make me do this, and then he ends up killing her. Again, it's heartbreaking when you see his face, Leland, like switching with Bob's back and forth through the wrap that he wraps her body in, and then puts it into the water. And then you see the Black Lodge. You see him enter through the sycamore trees. The arm meets up with Mike, and they like join forces, and he says, I want my Garmin Bosia. And then Bob just sucks a bunch out of Leland floating in the air. Oh, this is insane, and shoots it on the ground. So is Mike, like, he's not like a fully evil lodge entity. He seems like pretty helpful. I think some of them are just, it doesn't matter, like there's no side, kind of like if they were aliens and they just look at us like we look at ants, like, oh, they're there, but like we really don't care either way. And that's how I think some of the lodge entities are. Like, they try to intervene, like maybe for their own reasons, but they're not just straight up evil or good. Like, there's a lot of gray area in the Black Lodge world. And then you see Cooper in the Black Lodge, which, again, all of this is taking place back in the past in alternate timelines, because before she gets killed, we see the scene that we've seen multiple times by the time the return ended, with her and James, and her screaming, I love you, James, and running into the woods. And that's right about when Cooper should have been trying to save her ass. But that's not for another 25 years, I guess. But we see Cooper in the lodge. Now they're both bound to the lodge, and she ends up seeing the angel. So I guess that's her guardian angel that disappeared before. Now she's in the lodge, and she has an angel that gives her some type of hope. Maybe hope that Cooper is that angel and that he'll, save her one day, or at least save her soul, or anything like that. You can go a million directions with Lynch and this movie, and especially Twin Peaks as a whole. So I'm surprised we even got through all this, like, coherently. But that's David Lynch's Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me from '92. Excellent film. Alright guys, hope everyone's having a good morning, afternoon, or night. I'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.